Today is February the 24th. It is 27 degrees with a wind chill probably in the upper teens because of 20 mile an hour winds or so. I brought the drone today. It's not going up for a couple of logistical reasons. I can probably get it to work with the app that has been upgraded past my phone's compatibility on the new one, but my old phone, it remains, and it may work on that, but with wind upwards of 20 miles an hour. I have better things to do today than try to chase a drone that was taken by the wind. So,
okay, we're back. You're going to hear me whining
here,
about the cold today because with the wind going, it's freezing out here.
Kind of like crusty snow.
You get into a lower dip like I'm in right now. The wind chill is probably
cover a
about
couple
13
topics
degrees right
today.
now, so it is cold and windy.
One of which is going to be a psychological.
So we'll
rant.
brave this for a bit. The wind is such the drone is definitely staying.
It's going to have a
fucking
couple of
backpack. We're not
parallel
doing that
analogies
It's
in
just
there.
a recipe
So
for
consider
losing your drone, crashing your
the
drone. Things
core
that if you
flaw
put a
in
lot
the
of
thinking
a decent
process
amount of money
both
into
to find
droning, you don't want to
connection,
have
otherwise
happen
it'll
to
seem
your
like they're two
drone.
completely unrelated systems.
So,
but in my
item
mind,
number
the way
one.
that my wheels turn, they're not.
Same
so
as last week.
Let's get going. Let's not
poster
have me
from the
rambling
Facebook
here.
group
Let's keep moving, if only to
for
stay
the
warm.
research group. One
See if we
stayed
run
over
into
from
any
my
audio,
own,
though it doesn't seem
and
to
probably a
repeated
mile
since the
from
first
where
time
I'm
it
currently
happened this
walking.
year, and we'll take things from there. So let's get moving.
We have a
Thanks.
resurgence of speculation in the Church of Stick Art, i.e. stick structures, this stuff. And it's kind of a resurgence of my ongoing frustration with people that just, they're so desperate to have new evidence. Some of this is my own speculation on a psychological level. But they are so desperate for new evidence. Anything and everything must be pertinent to Bigfoot. And the problem with that is in terms of white noise. When everything is Bigfoot, nothing is. And when all the white noise is there, it cancels out when you actually might come across something that is compelling. Because it'll get lost in the shuffle with the BS. That is the threat, and that is why I am fairly adamant in my efforts to counteract that with some actual logic and thought process, because the question today was brought up an interesting pile of stick structures, and if I see something similar out here, I'll point it out. But when this lady basically pointed this out, red flag, logically speaking, number one, and I quote her, right next to the trail, unquote, you're on a trail system, probably in a state park, and I can probably guess which one it is because these people are fairly predictably consistent in their, sorry for that weird step, I just stepped in a weird little dip. They're fairly consistent in where they go and their need to televise where they go, which is contrary to my own doctrine of maintaining location neutrality at the time I'm there. And to a certain Mr. Bolton, boo-hoo, get over it, that's how I operate. Your entitled thoughts to the contrary are noted and incorrect. Moving on. It's not that I have issue with the group as a whole, because there are some sound-minded people in there, logically speaking, but first things first, when it's right on a trail like that, if they were doing stick art, and by them I mean them, people would see them. Trail systems are getting more use by people these days than ever before. Be it hunters, hikers, backpackers, people in the nearby neighborhood walking their dogs, the odd horse rider, dirt bikers, the ATV shitheads who basically ignore the laws and go in and ruin the trail systems for everybody else. You know who you are, and I turned two of you in back in October, and I hope you lost your licenses and got fined heavily, and they took your bikes so we don't have to deal with you in the spring. Not that I have a strong opinion, but The second thing, she made an argument to the contrary when myself and another person tried to set her straight, that you're more likely dealing with people. Well, the trees are huge. Okay. Gravity. They were new trees. How would they have just... Because here's the thing. And you can thank this one... You can thank my forestry course for that, because another guy who basically was casting doubt on this was a guy who literally said, I work in forestry. And so here's the thing. New England as a whole is undergoing a problem with wood-boring insects. And what they do, and here's a nice little stump. It's not an ideal thing, but I can give you a visual. This is the outside. This right here is the pulp part. They get in there and they eat this. So a tree can look fine on the outside, but they've eaten the pulp on the inside and they've killed the tree from the inside out, but it happens so rapidly. The outside of the tree may look fine, but you have this whole hollow center that weakens the tree, and if you have wind like today, snap, down it comes. Note that. That's a big tree. It snapped. It didn't get freaking forced over by Bigfoot. It broke. Let's go take a look. And this is what this girl, I'm not going to mention her name, I'll respect her privacy, I don't dox people, but this is what she didn't do. When you see something interesting like that, yeah, waddle your ass over to it and take a look at it and actually freaking study the damn thing. Make a fucking effort to ascertain what it was. Now here, notice, it broke, but you have these things interestingly put along here. What could account for that? People. Why? The reason this forest is so kind of like equidistantly spread out, there's been a timber harvest in here. There's one going on about 2 miles that way currently, and it may or may not resume in the spring. I can check. I know where to look on Facebook to confirm that or not. But so people have been in here. There are hunters in here. Probably 200 feet over that way somewhere, there's that hunter's blind. Which, if we, unless the guy took it down because his butt, anyone out here trying to hunt coyotes today and that is going to freeze their asses off. At least I'm moving around, but it is chilly in the wind. So that is the thing. Now, the flaw in this kind of thinking, and this is where we have the philosophical part of the rant come in. I'm going to use a parallel analogy, because apparently a bunch of this kind of thing has popped up in my YouTube feed, and that is, I'm going to apply the same logic to protesters, and specifically protesters from movements like PETA, and in Europe they have Just Stop Oil. And there was one, this came up on my radar because somebody showed me something where there's a bunch of these idiots. They weren't Just Stop Oil, but they use the same tactics as them in Nevada. They were trying to block people from getting into Burning Man in whatever the hell they have Burning Man. It's like early in the warmer months, obviously. But what these idiots do is they think it's perfectly well and fine to sit in the middle of a highway or a freeway and the interstate, or in this case, a tribal reservation road into the area where Burning Man is, which is a desert highway in the middle of nowhere. What they succeeded in doing, aside from accumulating a collective rage from the people that they're keeping from getting on their way, is they backed up traffic easily 5 miles in the desert heat and caused a hazardous situation, and they're completely oblivious to this. Where the philosophical flaw in thinking comes in is this. You may or may not have a completely valid cause that you're trying to raise awareness to. It's not the message people are rejecting as much as the boneheaded, butt-stupid freaking way that you're presenting your message. If I came across your protest and you're blocking me from trying to get to the hospital for a need to go to the emergency room, a doctor's appointment, just trying to get to work, in that moment, your flaw in thinking is this. As the affected, aggrieved party to your stupid, I don't give two fucks about your cause. You're blocking the road. And mommy should have taught you, and listen very carefully, boys and girls. This is not really that difficult, but it apparently needs to be said to clueless little protesting people of this fucking mindset, and that is this. Mommy, if she had done her job growing up, should have told you not to play in traffic, and yet here you are doing it. And the thing I commend the affected parties in what I've seen in these things, because apparently in Europe, these to stop oil people are active in Germany and England and all that. The people in Germany seem to be amazingly civil in moving these people out of the road, although the motorists get pissed off and just get up and start literally shoving these idiots out of the road, and they just get up and go back in the road. I'm going to say this is probably going to raise a flag or two, and fuck you, I don't care. I mean that in the rhetorical sense of F you, not to my actual viewers, but if you actually had somebody get completely freaking annoyed enough to the point where they floor it and they mow a couple of these idiots down, it's a learning opportunity. It's not a grievous, horrible act. It's a learning opportunity of the limitations of human tolerance for stupid. This has popped up in other social media. It's come up, and I made a comment along those lines, and somebody from the UK is, your typical road rage asshole, blah, blah, blah. They're pedestrians. They have a right to use the road too. No. When you're talking about sitting in the middle of a highway and blocking traffic and completely fucking up the morning commute, no, you don't. You're guilty of, let's see, you're guilty of criminal mischief. You're guilty of a public disturbance. You're guilty of, what's the word? Interfering with interstate commerce. You're interfering with the flow of traffic. I don't know the charge, but I'm sure there is one. You are interfering with, you're misusing the deployment of emergency services because they have to come out and deal with your bullshit. I was actually rather... And here's the thing, with a disclaimer, I am not the most pro-law enforcement person out there. However, ... When they get it right, they get it right. And the tribal police from the reservation showed up to the jackasses that were blocking the way into Burning Man after a very civil response from people that clearly wanted these protesters dead. And the protesters were that obnoxious. I don't condone, but I do sympathize with the thought process that got these people wanting them hanging from the nearest light pole. But unfortunately, you're in the middle of a damn desert and there ain't none. But regardless of this, the tribal police showed up, and this is the correct way to respond to this, as opposed to the pussy little bobbies in freaking Britain, in London doing nothing. So UK people, pay attention. What the folks in Nevada did is you had two F-250s that are like police vehicles roll up. The first one got up and said, I'll talk to your leader, but you're getting out of the road right now or I'm just going to start having people arrested. No bullshit. Just get your shit and get out of the road. And then the minute one of them came over to talk to them, the second one came in and just bulldozed the entire obstruction out of the road, dragging some dumb bitch that was like chained to the freaking gate with them. You move or you get dragged, and that's how you handle that. These people are clueless to a point where you don't negotiate with them. You freaking just get them out of the way and handle it and then arrest them. Which leads them into what happens here, and this is kind of a flaw in the system because of what they're doing. They probably have done this before, and they're repeat offenders. And here's the thing. They're not going to learn unless they start having some severe consequences to their stupid. You kind of have to apply the hammer with these idiots. And the reason I say that, I probably did an analogy like 2 weeks ago with the PETA people and a protest I was witness to personally. Getting back to where we are, though. They open themselves up to what cops call the notional arrest. They basically grab you, put you in the paddy wagon, take you in, or in this case, the back of the hotbed of a freaking F-250 and haul you off to the jail. And they basically take you through the glories of intake into the jail, which is being strip searched and all this other really unpleasant stuff. And they'll hold you long enough to give you a couple $100 fine, and then they send you on your way, which is nothing more than a slap in the wrist, which is why these people don't ever learn anything. They know that there's generally not going to be any real consequences because people like this probably don't have corporate jobs anyway. They basically are just idiots that go out on the weekend and do this shit. And that is the logical flaw in their thinking. They're so convinced that they're right. They don't see the flaw in their thinking, and they don't realize how badly they're representing the message they want to convey. That is the lesson. That is the moral story here, boys and girls. They just, with PETA, there's a reason why most militant vegans despise PETA. That's not from me. That's from militant vegans on Reddit. They can't stand PETA. Everybody fucking hates PETA who's not in PETA because they're just that fucking stupid. I thought they were the most clueless bunch of protesters out there until I came across these Just Stop Oil jackasses who, I mean, get out of the road and find... Here's the thing. I'm not saying you don't have a valid fucking cause. What I'm saying is your tactics suck. There's a better way to handle this. And there was another one where there was a counter protest where they had some luncheon where they were basically all, I guess, patting themselves on the back and just reinforcing their own collective delusion. But somebody had basically done something to sabotage the meeting and it basically shut it down. That's what you invite. You protest, we protest, and we'll shut you down. Because if you're going to do it to us, well, turnabout is fair play, and there's enough vindictive assholes out there in society. They're more than happy to bring this message to your doorstep. So you apply this back into the Bigfoot community, and I say this to the utmost, perhaps well-meaning, but not the most rational people in the woo camp, and that is this. There are those of us out there that apply a scientific mindset to this because there's no evidence for the bullshit you're peddling. And until you actually show some evidence, bullshit is exactly what it is. So make an effort, or at least be open to some honest criticism, because there's been enough butthurt little pansies out there. I'm going to use an old man term. That will like do stupid little below board things, like basically trying to DCM or like copyright strike or otherwise do a takedown on YouTube to get the stuff that is criticizing them off. It's basically censorship. If you can't convince people of your message, then you basically try to censor the dissenting voice. That is 1, cowardly, and 2, disingenuous, and 3, shows that you know you're full of shit. Because you have two types of people in the community doing this. You've got 3 technically. You've got the people that are so far out there, they're effectively they basically are the Zorthists. And to those that are newer to the subject that don't know who Zorth is or what Zorth is, I'm about to tell you, and before I do, let me give you the disclaimer. No, I'm not making this up, and I wish I was kidding. I'm not. You have Matthew Johnson, who is, number one, frighteningly enough, a therapist out on the West Coast, who at one point had a traumatic head injury and has descended into the depths of madness since. The dude is quite literally, 1, predatory, and 2, batshit crazy. And if he wants to sue me for saying so, and we go to court, let me say this right up front. Your argument, Matt, would be my defense. You're that far gone. And I'm that confident it would work. So, to that end, Zorth is the leader of the Council of 13 something, a bunch of energy beings from another planet. No, I'm not making this up. They came to Earth through a portal that was opened up by some machine that Matt claims he invented, yet he's never shown anyone. It's probably a shoebox with 2 Type D batteries and a freaking old Xbox controller in it. And like set up to like a pedal power thing that he exercises with, and calls it his portal making machine. Okay, prove it. Oh, you can't? Never mind. Anyway, he brought them through, and they came to Earth, and they basically are now the ones that, like, they only talk to him, because that's how that always works, making him the Bigfoot Messiah of the people that came here and turned into pine trees. And again, I wish I was making that up, and the saddest part of that is, this all happened about the same time that Michael Merchant, probably facetiously, was talking about Bigfoot as a plant person. Mike is a person who is not above a little casual trolling here and there, in my opinion, and probably was doing that with this. But Johnson couldn't even come up with his own original fucking bullshit. He had to steal the concept behind behind merchants. The problem is, like, Matthew went on to write 4 fucking books on this, and if you want to talk to the guy or his people at all, did you read his books? No, and I'm not going to. Well, yeah, I know. He doesn't want to let anybody inside the little reality bubble that he has, the little echo chamber, if you will, unless they're going to kiss his ass. Otherwise, interesting little track down there. That is probably... You know, it's a critter type animal of the 1 to 2 to 3 pound variety. Could be a raccoon, could be a number of things. Anyway, so you have the people that are that far gone, and rapidly rising stars in this space are one, Chris Noel. I rag on him a lot, but he's the one who doubled down on a porcupine being a baby Bigfoot. And the thing is, he knows better. But he's also a grifter. Why do I say that? When that didn't stick, apparently the next noodle he threw at the wall is UAPs and anti-gravity and the afterlife. Now, these are 3 concepts that have not been lumped together before that I've seen. But it also reeks of the same kind of new age bullshit that has basically ruined UFOs as a subject for me, because the new agey freaking preachy types want it to all be about the aliens are actually freaking what accounts for religion. They're here to save us, blah, 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 blah. Again, prove it. If Egon the Grey is here to save us, let him come down here in his priest robe and take me through what he's got. But otherwise, I haven't seen that happen yet, so I'll believe that when I see it. No offense to Egon personally, but being as you're only a figment of my facetious imagination in the moment, I'm not going to worry about it too much. But moving right along, you also have the types, the Carpenter, Isdal, Ketchum, and Paulides people. They're pushing a narrative. These people are just straight up grifters. You heard me. They're pushing a narrative. And these are the kinds of people that are actually the ones that try to reach out and take down people like the Tall Ones and other like-minded people. They haven't done it to me yet, only probably because mine is not a big channel. I do this because it's something to do while I'm out here and I'm not actually conducting research exercises, which I do off camera, but that's because it's impeded to do if you actually have the camera in your hand while you're doing it. Duh. I did have one where I had the phone and I was recording with an app there for the infrasound last year, but that's a rarity. I have a few actually like that, but you know, they take them down. The only reason they haven't is because, number one, I'm not monetized. My channel is completely non-monetized. I have no intention of monetizing it for a number of reasons, but makes you a lot more resilient to bullshit like Mark Zasky pulled with the Tall Ones. He's another one along the lines of Chris Noel and these guys, but there are those guys, and then you just have the wishful thinkers. They want everything to be Bigfoot. They're the ones, if this is a war for hearts and minds, they're the ones who are savable, because after pointing out my new approach with this lady on the Facebook group and others like them are, you try to approach them from, did you consider it could be this? Because with wood, like I said, with wood boring insects, first you point out your credential. I'm actually in school for forestry, and the other guy's backing me up here. He actually works in forestry. If you go to the thread in question, you'll see these comments. But it was like, basically, wood boring insect will, as I said, it attacks the pulp. So a tree can look perfectly fine on the outside, and they've basically killed it from the inside. Then you get a 30-mile-an-hour gust of wind, and it's just fragile enough at the right angle, and it cracks and comes down. And that's what happens to these little weird structures. And the fact that it's right by the trail tells me it ain't Bigfoot. Once upon a time, I found a very elaborate little... It's not even a structure as much as a shelter, and it was like literally right near a pond and a trail. And you want to know what that is? What is that bird right there? It's a crow. No, it's bigger than a crow. That's some kind of hawk. What is that? That's a raven. A big-ass one, though, but a raven. The eyes of Odin are upon me as I'm bitching out the freaking woo. Anyway. They're the savable ones, but you have to present to them the actual argument. You have to bring them this thing called science. So right here in these woods right here, looking around, what can I tell you? You got all these trees on the ground. Right there you have a break. There's one. You can literally, if you're, let me be quiet for a minute. You can probably see the treetops moving. You can hear the wind. These areas, 3 seasons out of 4, are subject to high winds on a continual basis. So all these trees that are down, wind. We haven't had a heavy snow load this year, so it ain't snow load, it's wind. And by way of wind, gravity, the great assister, the great equalizer. But this is also an area where you run into things like this. That could be any kind of a tree-borne disease. Bigfoot did not crawl that tree from top to bottom and peel off the bark because he was bored or has some kind of an OCD, although that would be an interesting take on the subject. If they are like us and they're near to us in intelligence, for all you know, they have OCD and all this other BS too. You hear these things about them coming into camp and they'll get into somebody's backpack, but they'll stack the shit oh so freaking anal retentively. I find that fascinating. That's a detail in a story that I perk up to because I find that interesting. Because I've heard that more than a few where it's like, he didn't just throw the stuff. I mean, if it's a bear, the bear doesn't care. He just starts flinging shit to get to what he wants. Not Bigfoot, though. He stacks the stuff up. As he's thieving through your pack looking for your granola bars, he's very considerate. He's very neat and very tidy. I appreciate that in the thief. At least you're considerate. You know, he's grabbing what he needs, and then he just he probably brings you back a dead duck or something later as a freaking trade, and then, you know, so they're kind of even Steven in their own way. That's okay. But yeah, they're kind of like the ones that I've kind of developed in my mind, my mythos of people that are fucking up the subject in the community. The third category, which are the savable, if you can kind of make a compelling argument based on science. And in this case, yeah, like wood borers. They are known to be here. Just check in Connecticut, it's the DEP. In other states, it's the DNR. But they'll have some page on their grander web portal where they're talking about timber harvesting to save various types of trees from the wood boring infestations, because this is a standard forestry practice. And again, going into the class I'm taking, you basically have to kill off and then harvest the infected trees for the better of the greater good of the forest as a whole. Wind, I can't help you. I mean, you hear it. So that's that. The other thing going on today, and then I'm going to probably wrap this up as far as the actual video, get back to checking on some research efforts out here. A blast from the past indirectly approached me trying to revive his radio show. This is half a message to him on the off chance that he listens to my video. If he doesn't, that's fine too. But so years ago in the course, I mentioned a certain subpoena that was served to me based on a certain photo that was circulating circa 2013. This gentleman was part of that process. I'm not going to go back and revive it. I had said at one point that I thought he had left the community. I had always kind of had doubts, though. Well, it turns out he's back, and he's trying to revive his radio show, and by that I mean his podcast, which is probably on YouTube, because that's a form that they currently take. And a person I thought he had a nasty falling out with apparently has made up with him, which is completely his call, but he approached me about going on the show, and this is my response. I'm going to do it publicly for the sake of, while it's great that you're back, and while it's great that you have made up with your former sidekick, and the fact that you are possibly looking to make amends, I have not heard a thing. I've not heard boo from you directly, and as far as I know, we are still on bad terms. I also am willing to concede it's been 11 years now, so, you know, I am more than happy to have bygones be bygones if we're agreeing to leave the past in the past and call it a day, but there's no way I'm going on your show without at least having some form of a conversation first to see where we stand. That's my response. I told your friend John I would think about it, and I will. But that's my requirement, is that you reach out to me directly and we have a conversation. I don't have you blocked on Facebook. I am reachable. I am findable. I host easily 7 or 8 different Bigfoot-centric freaking pages and groups to the, specific to the Northeast. I'm not hard to find. So, if you look up NESN, which is a Northeastern Sasquatch Investigative Network, that's me. That's me and mine, and you can find me there. You want to talk about it, we can talk about it, but it's not going to happen without a chat. That's my answer. I have, at this point, some things to check on in the immediate area as far as research to go, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. And because it's so cold, and I don't know how adversely it's going to affect the battery. Last week's episode was kind of promptly interrupted by the fact the battery gave out, and I don't think I charged the camera last week. I had other things going on, but this week I'm cognizant of that, and we're going to call this one here. Like, subscribe if you want, if you have suggestions for things you'd rather have me do. If I were to show research-related things, I'd have to bring in a tripod and do things that way and alter the way I do things. I'll bear that in mind if people want to see that. In the meantime, I am going to wrap this one up. Hopefully you like what I'm doing. If you want to see me do something else, like I said, make suggestions, and we'll catch you on the flip side. And that's going to be this one in the books. Thanks.